Part 209. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2082. Imperial Physician Lu asked them, which one of you would like to go to the hospital with me? It was Zhou Man and Imperial Physician Zheng who asked. Man Bao did not wait for Imperial Physician Zheng to speak and immediately said, I am with you. She wanted to go and have a look, and heard Bai Shan say that the situation there is much more serious than that of the other hospital. In his heart, Imperial Physician Zheng didn't really want to go to the hospital, but it was his responsibility. He should go in terms of age and qualifications, but Zhou Man was also very determined. However, seeing her look like she had to go, Imperial Physician Zheng could only keep silent and give her this opportunity. The doctors did not know what was inside, and they were moved to see the Imperial Physicians scramble to go to the most dangerous place. Dr. Jane couldn't hold back and said, I'll go with the two Imperial Physicians. Naturally, this is not acceptable. Yang Heshu and the family had agreed before that, no matter what the situation, they would have to guarantee the doctor and the Dr. Hua to see a doctor for them in another hospital. Otherwise, how can the county government have so much money to buy medicinal materials? The patients in the medical shed are still waiting for the medicinal materials to save their lives. So Yang Heshu spoke out to appease Dr. Jin and Dr. Hua, and helped Imperial Dr. Lu arrange all the doctors. As for the medical assistants they brought, it was an old rule that an imperial doctor brought a medical assistant, and they directly ordered the familiar ones. Anyway, medical assistants are also used as doctors at the moment. They are assistants in the palace, but in the private sector, their medical skills are not much worse than those of the doctors present. It's just that they are used to taking orders, and may not be comfortable with making up their own minds at first. However, Man Bao felt that this kind of thing was easy to learn. As long as he entered other hospitals and medical sheds, he would not have time to ask other people's opinions. I believe they could learn to make up their own minds within 2 days. Man Bao was going to the medical shed, and Bai Shan and Bai Erlang naturally transferred there. It just so happened that they had been preparing for the past 4 days. The focus of the fight against the epidemic is actually in the medical shed. When Man Bao and Tai Lu led the 4 medical assistants behind the doctors to the medical shed, they heard screams, crying, and even scolding before they got there. Different from the quietness of other hospitals, the biggest feature of the medical shed is the noise. Yang Heshu also followed, and he wanted to arrange the imperial physician and medicinal materials. After Man Bao got out of the car, he looked up and saw that there was a level guarded by heavy troops in front of him. In the distance was an open field. At this time, there were many wooden sheds on the fields. People came and went there. Many wooden sheds it was still steaming, and the aroma of medicine was constantly floating in the air. After passing the checkpoint, Bai Shan pointed to the observation deck built on the roadside and Man Baidao, from here, you can see the panoramic view of the medical shed. This area was originally a field, and if you go further there is the city wall. Now the medical shed is surrounded by heavy troops. The defenders of Xiaohu city, except for the city gate, are the most troops and horses deployed here. Man Bao asked, are they afraid that the people here will rush through? Bai Shan nodded, there are too many patients here, and it's easy to cause trouble if someone who wants to provoke them. Besides, there are real problems, and there are not enough medicines. He glanced calmly at General Gong who was standing not far away, lowered his voice and said, now all the troops and horses in the city are in the hands of General Gong. I only learned from Brother Yang the day before yesterday. Although the official document of the closure of the city has General Gong's seal, it is actually General Gong Shao who persuaded General Gong, and since the closure of the city, General Gong has been behind closed doors. Man Bao didn't ask the deep-seated reason, just stared at the crying crowd in front of him. Occasionally, someone would bring a corpse out of it and put it on the wooden board in the open space outside. Just a quarter of an hour when they were talking, she saw 3 people being carried out. Bai Shan's expression was also a little sad, but he said very lightly, every day there are dead people here, and the number of dead people is much larger than that in the other courtyards. It is impossible for you to treat the other courtyards one by one. Careful maintenance, I'm afraid more people will die. The sadness in Manbao's heart was squeezed again, and she asked, so you suggest boiling a big pot of medicine? The medical shed has been preparing medicines like this, which not only saves manpower, medicinal materials, but also firewood. Bai Shan said, don't look at what Brother Yang said he would be responsible for, but I have seen the county government's account book. He has already scoured the medicinal materials from the nearby states and counties, and the neighboring states and counties have also sent food and vegetables, and now he has consumed a lot of them. If there is no effect, he will definitely not be able to keep it. Xiaozhou City. With the current daily infection rate, if it goes further, not to mention that the imperial court may consider abandoning Xiaozhou City, and Xiaozhou City may also be squatting. Yes, there will be a riot. The reason why General Gong was so patient with the whole process today was to grab an imperial physician and a few doctors from here to take a look at the barracks. There are more and more soldiers infected with smallpox in the military camp, and the military doctors have no way to cure people. Imperial physician Lu also checked the situation of the medical shed with the staff of the medical shed. The situation was indeed very bad. He looked at Zhou Man, and simply pointed to the farthest position and said, Dr. Zhou, we are on one side, from both sides. In the middle, how about looking at the conditions of all the patients and then dividing the patients to be responsible? Man Bao had no opinion and looked at Bai Shan. Bai Shan said, I'm going to help senior brother Yang. I'm not here all the time. You should pay attention to your own safety. If you want to find me, you can ask the Yamen to send a message to the county government. Man Bao responded, you also have to be careful. Imperial physician Lu didn't want to see their crooked appearance, so he carried his medicine box and 2 medical assistants and left. Bai Erlang also waved to Man Bao, and Bai Shan hurried to catch up with Yang Heshu. What they had to do now was to distribute the medicinal materials everywhere. What kind of medicinal material needs to be distributed in each place, and the amount of the distribution should be calculated and distributed. Man Bao walked to the other side with his 2 medical assistants. They were also wearing masks. Looking at the past, they felt a little heavy. Maybe it was to liven up the atmosphere. Dr. Qin asked with a smile, Dr. Zhou, can the pills you just gave us in the county government really prevent smallpox? It hurts my heart to mention this full treasure. It cost a lot of money. One medicine has more than 1,200 points. If you buy it further, it will only be more expensive. But as Bai Shan said, if there are new doctors to join later, she has to buy pills for them to eat. She can't treat the disease here, but the doctors over there might contract smallpox themselves, right? Man Bao glanced at his total points, and simply retracted his consciousness and stopped looking at it, so as not to feel heartache again. She said, of course it is useful, it is of great use, you have to thank me. Both Qin and Luo laughed, feeling that Imperial physician Zhou was joking with them. After all, the medicine was like a candy, and there was nothing special about it. So they also nodded jokingly, yes, I have to thank Imperial Dr. Zhou. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2083. But Imperial Physician Luo still hinted, Dr. Zhou missed Imperial Physician Lu when he gave us the medicine. I don't think Imperial Physician Lu is very happy. Man Bao said, but Imperial Physician Lu has had acne, and he won't have acne again. A medicine is precious. Imperial Dr. Lu no longer needs it. Why waste a medicine? However, this anti-epidemic pill is really too expensive, especially the more expensive it is not worth it. Therefore, the method of vaccinating should be researched. When the time comes, everyone will directly vaccinate, and if you encounter smallpox, you will not have to buy pills again. She has calculated it in the book in private, and every 10 pills will increase by 10% on the previous price. This incremental price is about the same as drinking her blood. The encyclopedia is really strict with things with high technology content. Man Bao was thinking about such a big thing as money, but medical assistant Qin and medical assistant Luo couldn't help but look at each other. Imperial Dr. Zhou has always been generous, and he was even reluctant to give Imperial Dr. Lu a piece of sweet candy to make people happy. Alas, it sounds like Imperial Dr. Lu didn't speak well at first. Man Bao didn't take this to heart, and Imperial Physician Lu had already left Zhou Man behind. Seeing the chaos in the medical shed, Imperial Physician Lu, who was wearing a mask, gasped in anger. "Blow up!" He scolded the patients who were sitting or lying in the hospital shed, and asked them to get up immediately to make their beds, wash their faces and wash their hands and wait for his consultation. The patients who were lazy and a little angry at the doctors even shrank their necks timidly after being scolded by Imperial Physician Lu angrily, and got up obediently to make their beds. The doctor who hastily followed up. "Most of the people living here are rogues. Sometimes they are still seeing other patients. When they don't have time to see them, they can directly find other medical sheds to fight and scold people. People." The patients looked at Imperial Physician Lu's official uniform, and timidly sat or lay down. Even if they didn't see themselves for a while, they didn't dare to make a noise. And Man Bao walked to the other side of the Changchang medical shed, and the people on that side were all women. Dr. Qin, who followed him, said, "This medical shed is really thoughtful. There are female patients here, children in the middle, and male patients over there." Man Bao also found it, nodded and said, "The row of medical sheds is long enough, so that if a man walks through it, or a woman walks through it, it's easy to see what to do." When he finally reached the first medical shed, Man Bao opened the curtain and went in. He saw a lot of women lying inside. The light was a little dim, and the smell inside was a little uncomfortable even though Man Bao was wearing a mask. She frowned, and the steward who led them shouted, "Wake up, this is the Imperial doctor from the Imperial Hospital to see you, open your eyes if you are still alive." The patients in the medical shed made a commotion, and some even managed to get up and look at Zhou Man. Man Bao nodded and said hello to everyone. "Hello everyone, Zhou Man in Zaitai Hospital, this is Imperial Dr. Qin from the Imperial Hospital, this is Imperial Dr. Luo, we are here to check your health today." After speaking, he turned his head to Medical Assistant Qin and Medical Assistant Luo and said, "Let's start." Qin Yazu and Luo Yazu were surprised that Zhou Man directly raised their identities to the outside world, but they understood after seeing the patients in the medical shed who had convinced them a lot. The two nodded silently, carrying their medicine boxes to see the patient, one next to Zhou Man and the other opposite Zhou Man. The beds in the medical shed were even simpler, with a few bricks and stones on the bottom and wooden boards on the top. A single bed could only accommodate one person, and it was short and shabby. Therefore, in a medical shed, wooden beds were laid on both sides, and only a passageway for two people was left in the middle. Man Bao squatted down in front of the innermost patient. She noticed her difference early in the morning. Everyone else opened their eyes or stood up to look at them. Only this person didn't move at all. Man Bao reached out to feel her pulse, and when startled, he went to feel her neck. After a while, he opened the medicine box and took out the needle bag. While giving her a needle, he asked, "What about her family?" The patient on the side replied, "No." Man Bao looked up at the patient who answered and asked, "What about the person who takes care of her?" Neither the patient on the side said, "This disease is contagious, so how can I let my family come in? And it's not sure if the family is still there, maybe they're all dead." Man Bao was silent and didn't speak. He rolled up her sleeves and gave her acupuncture. After a while, the man on the bed barely opened his eyes. Man Bao felt her pulse and asked her, "Do you know your name?" The patients in the hospital shed are completely different from the patients in other hospitals. Perhaps only 2 of the 10 patients here are accompanied by family members. In addition, it is a family, even a family of relatives and friends live here, or they all live together in a village. The priorities of the illnesses are all living together. Even if the stewards have tried their best to separate the medical sheds, they are still not perfect. In the face of life and death, this little inconvenience and shortcomings also seem insignificant, and medicine is the most worrying. Some patients have been treated for 3 days since they were admitted to the hospital. They are all burned out and have never seen the doctor. They just went to the cauldron where the medicine was boiled outside to get a bowl of medicine to drink. Fortunately, they survived the time of acne and high fever. Unfortunately, after being admitted to the hospital, he was carried out without even seeing the doctor's face. After being identified by the family, they will be cremated, and then the family will bring back a handful of ashes. And there are no family members to pick them up at all. Such people are directly burned, and the ashes that have been burned are piled aside. Some people who can't find their relatives come here to cry, and then grab a handful of ashes and go back. It's my own family. Only when he really came in did Manbao know the difference between the medical shed and other hospitals, and now that the medical shed can have the current stability, it is all supported by Yang Heshu, and the military deterrence of General Gong Shao can be calm. Manbao couldn't get out as soon as she plunged in. She went out of the hospital shed to look for food when she was very hungry. At this time, let alone bathing and changing clothes, she even looked for a long time to wash her hands before she found someone to pour a basin of hot water. This pot of hot water was shared with Dr. Qin and Dr. Luo. The 3 of them squatted by the water basin to call for water to wash their hands, then put them all in and soaked them, and Manbao sighed. Assistant Qin also sighed, the needles that I wanted to pierce have to be boiled before they can be used by the next person, but Dr. Luo said, be content, they are all smallpox anyway, but we rarely use needles, that's just embarrassing Imperial Dr. Zhou. Manbao pulled back her hands silently, trying to wipe her hands, but found that there was no towel, so she could only silently shake off the water droplets on her hands in the cold wind, and then dry her hands together with Dr. Qin and Assistant Luo. When the cold wind blew, the hands that were originally warm red slowly changed back to their original color, and then had a tendency to be cold red. Manbao turned around and said, let's go, let's eat something. They couldn't find Imperial Physician Lu and them at all, so they went directly to the place where the medicine was boiled. The soldiers who boiled the medicine saw them and pointed to the bowl, then made them a bowl of rice porridge, and gave them a steamed bun. This is theirs, dinner is late. The 3 of them squatted in the cold wind and ate steamed buns and porridge, looking pitiful from a distance. Good night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2084. This is what Yang Heshu and General Gong saw when they came over. General Gong was nothing, but Yang Heshu was a little distressed. After all, it is a child who has watched him grow up. The 2 came to invite Zhou Man to take someone to the barracks to take a look. Manbao finished eating the steamed buns in his hand in 3 or 2 gulps, and drank the rice porridge in 1 gulp, then got up and said, let's go. Medical Assistant Qin and Medical Assistant Luo were faster. They followed Zhou Man's medical assistant, and naturally they went with her. The soldiers infected with smallpox in the army were all isolated in the camp next to the city tower, not very far from the medical shed, but they still passed by in carriages. The carriage was prepared for the 3 of them, but Yang Heshu gave up riding and sat in the carriage with Manbao. He asked, are you tired? Manbao said, it's okay. Brother Yang, are there many sick soldiers in the military camp? Yang Heshu said, there are 189 people in the statistics, which is quite a lot according to the proportion. They have to close the roads, guard the city gates and checkpoints, manage the medical shed, and even search for people who are infected with smallpox and hide from each household. They have a lot of contact with patients, so the probability of infection is also high. He said, Bai Shan is now organizing people to make some masks, all for the soldiers and officials on duty. I have never asked you, how useful is this? Man Bao thought for a while and said, at least it can reduce the infection rate by half. Hearing that, Yang Heshu made up his mind, and immediately said, I'll ask someone to hand over some more cloth to Bai Shan when I go back. Man Bao nodded. After a few words, Man Bao got out of the car with the medicine box and followed the people inside. General Gong Xiao followed them to the front of the house, and solemnly bowed to Zhou Man, Emperor Zhou, I'm sorry to bother you. Man Bao nodded. The conditions here seem to be better than those in the medical shed, but in fact they are not much better. They are all old and rough, and they don't pay attention to hygiene. It's itchy. Many people couldn't help scratching it several times. Now the pimples have broken open, and it looks miserable. Not only Man Bao, but Dr. Qin and Luo also frowned. Broken pimples are more difficult to treat and more contagious, and they need to be handled more carefully. Man Bao first looked at the condition of the patients in this room, and found that their condition was not much better than that of the people in the medical shed, and many of them had high fever, so she arrange the people with high fever in the same room, I will prescribe the medicine after showing them, and then all the needles will be punctured. Man Bao whispered to Qin and Luo about the precautions in the acupuncture, and everyone started to get busy. At the end of the day, Man Bao has already distinguished the patients here from the patients in the other hospital. She had someone write a number and hang it on the head of each person's bed, and then consulted and felt the pulse all the way. After 10 people have passed, start down, write the numbers directly, list the people who need to prescribe the same prescription, directly prescribe a sufficient amount of medicine, and then give it to the soldiers waiting on the side, boil the medicine according to the prescription. The soldier couldn't read, so he went out with the prescription and ran back, why do you need 20 bowls of water, and you have to boil it for so long? Man Bao glanced at him and said, didn't you see, there are 6 people's medicines on it, by the way, don't pour the dregs of the medicine after one pass, one medicine can be boiled twice, and some people should be able to use it in a while. The soldier couldn't help biting his lip, yes, but others also have to boil the medicine. If they don't go backwards, how can others use the medicine pot? Man Bao said, after boiling, just put it in water and boil again, this recipe will definitely be used later, if you are afraid that you can't remember it, then write a number on the medicine jar, indicating that it is number 1. Medicine, I'll tell you later, who should take the number 1 medicine and who should take the number 2 medicine. This way, the speed is much faster. Assistant Qin and Assistant Luo, who were on the side, understood and wanted to do the same, but it was the first time they did something like this, and they couldn't help but be in a hurry. They only watched the work of 5 patients, and Zhou Man had already watched it. There are 12 patients, and 3 of them have needles stuck in their bodies. She can remember the time, read the pulse of one person, and directly tell the soldier waiting by the side, give him a bowl of number 2 medicine, and then go. Pour some rubbing concoction to scrub him. Then go to the side to pull the needle. After the needle was pulled, I went to see the next patient. General Gong stood at the door and watched for a while, and found that she saw the most patients and used the fewest subordinates, but she was always orderly. He remembered Bai Shan who was with Yang Heshu now, he couldn't help but smiled, turned to Yang Heshu and said, I now know why you admire this imperial Dr. Zhou so much, she is really amazing. He added, I used to think that you are very powerful. You are in charge of so many things, and the people below can be busy with 1 or 2 things, but you can always be orderly. Now it seems that smart people always have something in common. Yang Heshe smiled and said, "Is General Gong complimenting me, or is he complimenting himself?" General Gong said with a smile, "I'm far behind you. It's not even comparable to Zhou Man in the house and young Master Bai who is busy in the county office." Yang Heshe didn't argue with him about this, turned around and said, let's go, and see the situation in other camps." The defenders of Xiaoshu city were one of Yang Heshe's biggest reliances, so he could not afford to lose. General Gong Gong naturally knew this, and went with Yang Heshe to investigate the situation in other camps. Everyone was busy, so after 2 days, there was finally good news. In other hospitals, especially in the number 1 hospital, the number of cured people began to rise significantly. The situation in the medical shed is slowly improving, at least the number of daily deaths is no longer rising sharply. The better news is that the daily number of infected people in the city began to decline, and outside the city, people from the south began to return to seek medical treatment, and people from other villages also came to seek medical treatment. After discussing with the officials of the state and county, Yang Heshe began to build a medical shed outside the city, avoiding the official road and setting it downwind. As soon as the medical shed was completed, it began to collect patients wandering outside the city. Man Bao was ordered to take 2 medical assistants out of the city to take charge. "I didn't expect to meet Wu Xiang's family in the medical shed." Man Bao glanced at his daughter and said after prescribing the medicine, "She has already survived the most difficult time. I will give her a few medicines to clear up the acne." Wu Xiang breathed a sigh of relief. Bai Shan was instructed to come here to take care of the newly built medical shed. The medical shed here is completely supported by the yamen, so the daily consumption of food and medicinal materials must be carefully calculated, so as not to waste more or use less kill people. The rice porridge cooked by Bai Shan is not thick. One person only has 2 meals a day, and 1 bowl of porridge. If you want more, you have to cook it by yourself. See you around 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2085. The prescriptions, which had been changed several times by observing the patient's condition, began to be sent to various places through the hands of the Xiaoshu Fuyat. Imperial Dr. Lu watched the officials put the 5 prescriptions written down by Zhou Man in the official document and left, and couldn't help but faintly sighed. Some time ago, Zhou Man came up with a few prescriptions. They thought about using it for some patients, and then changed it according to the feedback. Adding his previous prescription, it can basically treat all smallpox patients. Adults, women, children, the elderly, the infirm, and the healthy, all use different prescriptions, but these prescriptions have been changed, and they are basically suitable for the patients they are currently seeing. One of the recipes belonged to him, 3 recipes belonged to Zhou Man, and the other one was figured out by the doctors in Xiaoshu city before. He thought it should be their own collection afterwards, who knew that Zhou Man would advertise it directly. Imperial physician Lu glanced at Zhou Man, remembering that she had always been generous in matters such as medical skills, so she didn't say anything. He backs his hand. He turned around and said, "Let's go, everyone, let's take a look at the newly admitted patients today." Up to now, there are people who have been cured and left every day in the medical shed, and the number of people has already exceeded the number of people who died every day. Of course, there are a lot of patients who come in every day. But looking at the patients who are cured and left every day, the doctors can always rekindle passion in their hearts, and then continue to bury their heads in the patients. It has been half a month in a row, and Man Bao does not sleep more than 3 hours a day, but he still feels in good spirits. Bai Shan is more laborious than Zhou Man. She is very hard-working, but what she is doing now is what she is good at, curing diseases. Bai Shan is different. He is now Yang Heshe's right-hand man, and this is the first time he has taken over these government affairs. Although he has Yang Heshe's guidance, many things are done for the first time and require a lot of effort. But the benefits are also obvious. With the joint efforts of the state and county officials, the grievances of the people in the city have been reduced a lot. Now the city gate is open 3 times a day, and no one will go to the gate for about half an hour each time. Or get out of the capital. Since the imperial physicians of the imperial hospital arrived in Xiaoshu city, the families who were eager to leave the city also quieted down, and they just turned to put pressure on the county government and the imperial physicians to seek medical advice. But now the 2 principals of Xiaoshu city, Yang Heshu and his own wife, live in other courtyards for treatment. General Gong, his younger brother, a cousin, 3 cousins, and 2 younger siblings also, they are all treated in other hospitals, so why can others make exceptions for imperial physicians? Not to mention Man Bao and imperial physician Lu, those people didn't even invite imperial physician Zheng, who was busy in the other hospital, and in the end they obediently sent the patient to the other hospital for unified treatment. Those who have female dependents admitted to the hospital also want to invite Man Bao in particular. At first, people directly bypassed Yang Heshu and found Man Bao through the steward of the medical shed. Man Bao did not refuse, but said, "Wait until I finish the patient in hand." But, how can the patient in her hand be finished? The steward who came to invite someone covered his mouth and nose and followed Joe Man around several hospital sheds, from morning to afternoon. Seeing that there were still so many patients who hadn't seen him, he couldn't help but urged him a few words, but Man Bao ignored him. Instead, he instructed him to work, asking him to help with hot water, a stove, etc. The sun was about to go down when the steward left at last, but Joe Man didn't take time to rest, except for eating and drinking. She hardly stopped. The steward left silently, leaving this house and coming to that house again. Anyway, it was quite lively around Manbao in those days. When the people stopped coming, Manbao still felt a little pity, holding a bowl and helping Dr. Luo while they squatted in the cold wind to eat. He said, "Actually, it's good for them to come. Every time they don't come empty-handed, there are still people help." Medical assistant Chin and medical assistant Luo also missed it. The roast chicken that Mrs. Chen ordered to be delivered last time was not bad. "It's a pity." Manbao nodded in agreement. "It's a pity. It's a pity that there was only one meal, and now no one comes to her anymore." The 3 of them sighed, then continued to pull the cabbage in the bowl and swallowed it. Dr. Chin told the news that he had inquired, "I heard that it will be vegetable buns early in the morning." Manbao was a little happier. Cai bao is a little better than cabbage rice. The 2 medical assistants thought so too. Full treasure dash. Manbao turned his head to look, and saw Bai Shan came over with 2 food boxes. He handed one over to the medical assistant Chin and said with a smile, "This is a dumpling made at home. The 2 medical assistants will try it." Dr. Chin and Dr. Luo's eyes lit up. They immediately took the food box and went to another place to eat, giving the 2 of them the place. Manbao also stared at the food box. Bai Shan opened the food box and said, "This is what Lejun asked someone to make and sent. It's made with beef and beef bone soup." Manbao drank the soup first, and after a sip of the steaming soup, she felt alive. She asked, "Where is Imperial Physician Lu? I had someone send it over." Manbao nodded and sighed, "It's my 4th brother now, and the rest of the city doesn't have much meat to eat, right?" Bai Shan nodded, "There are even few vegetables, and now a medical shed has been built outside the city. I have contacted people in the past 2 days and plan to go out to inspect the village tomorrow. I will check if there are vegetables and eggs. If there are any, I'll buy some back." He said, "When I go, it may take 7 or 8 days to come back." Manbao was surprised, "So long?" Bai Shan nodded. "Shuexian Yang and I decided to go through all the villages under the jurisdiction of Xiaoshu city to count the number of infected people. Some villages are closed, and they are blocked by themselves when they get sick. We have to do an inventory and notification." Manbao asked, "Are you taking a doctor?" "I only brought one military doctor," he smiled after a pause, because you took over all the patients in the military camp. This time General Gongxiao generously gave us the military doctor, including the 5 you gave us. A prescription, as long as the pulse diagnosis is accurate, you can prescribe medicine to save people. Isn't it that the medicinal materials are not enough? How many medicinal materials did you take away this time? Not a lot, Bai Shanzhong said roughly about the amount of various medicinal materials he brought, and then said, the news from the capital has arrived, and the Ministry of Household has sent another batch of medicinal materials. There are students from the Imperial Physician's Office and doctors recruited from the private sector, and the official document says there are 28 people in total. Man Bao was surprised, so many people. Bai Shan nodded. Man Bao said happily, when they come, we can free some hands here. When will they arrive? It'll be there in 3 or 2 days, Bai Shan asked in a low voice. So did you tell your father-in-law about the pills? Man Bao's face became bitter, and he nodded. I said, no problem. Seeing it funny, Bai Shan reached out and touched her head and said, I will be careful when I go out this time. If I see rare flowers and plants, I will dig them for you. See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2086. The last time Man Bao took out a bottle of medicine and distributed it to Imperial Physician Zheng and the others, he had a bitter look on his face. Bai Shan guessed that the pills were not cheap. But the gold and silver in the world seems useless in the underworld. Anyway, he has never seen Man Bao worry about gold and silver, so the cost of these pills should be paid by his father-in-law. He only knew that his father-in-law likes some flowers, plants, and animals. Now that he thinks about it, it should be money that can be exchanged for the underworld. Bai Shan smiled slightly, and whispered to Man Bao, I heard that there are many deer on the grassland. When the time comes, I will buy you a live deer and send it to my father-in-law quietly. Man Bao's eyes lit up, and the whole person was happy. Even Keek, who has been silent all the time, said, according to my scan, there are many kinds of deer on the grassland, such as red deer, white-lipped deer, tufted deer, sika deer, etc. In addition to deer, the host can also collect sheep. Divided into many kinds, such as argali, high-nosed antelope. Man Bao hurriedly said in his mind, I see, we'll talk about it when we get to the grassland. Keek, we have to take it slow. Keek said he understood, just to remind the host, in fact, there are many creatures worth collecting on the grassland, these are just relatively large animals, and there are many cherished plants. The host used to collect plants in the mountains and forests, this time you can appreciate it. The scenery of the prairie. Man Bao also looked forward to it in his heart, so he said to Bai Shan, go and come back quickly. She then remembered, is it because you chose to count the villages at this time because the capital is coming? Yes, Bai Shan said, this time Erlang and I will bring some defenders and send them back to the city when we find the patient. The doctors over there in the capital are coming soon, so they will have a place to use them. Man Bao, I thought she would be more relaxed after they arrived. Who knew that there would be more doctors and more patients? Bai Shan pointed in one direction and said, the county government plans to choose another piece of land to build a medical shed in the suburbs south of the city, and the people who are sent here can live there. Construction has already started today, and it can be built in 2 or 3 days. The medical shed is made of wood and thatch. It is not difficult, but the wood needs to be cut down and the thatch needs to be collected and purchased. But these all work, albeit with a little difficulty. Man Bao sighed and understood, we will be ready. Bai Shan gave her another bowl of soup and said, drink more, I think you've lost weight. Man Bao looked at Bai Shan and said sincerely, you have lost weight too. 2 days later, Zhou Liru, who was standing in front of Man Bao, also hugged his aunt and cried, little aunt, you have lost weight. Lu Sunyang and Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao on the side agreed with them. Man Bao was shocked, why are you all here? As a senior brother, Zhenggu replied on behalf of everyone, the Taiyuan hospital has posted an order. As a medical assistant in the Taiyuan hospital, I can't fall behind the private doctors, so I signed up together. And the master is here, as a disciple, I should wait by my side. Man Bao asked, it's okay for the three of you, why did Li Ru come? She has only been studying for a few years, and although she has a little appearance now, she can't sit in the hall independently at all. Zhou Liru hurriedly said, little aunt, I'm here to help you. I heard from the official, you don't even have a handy helper here. Brothers and sisters can prescribe independently, they can see patients by themselves, and I will hit you up. Then he avoided people and whispered, I came to see because I was worried about my aunt and second sister. Everyone came and couldn't rush back. Man Bao nodded and said, okay, you can stay with me. Have you eaten the pills I sent back? Eat it, auntie, it tastes like the candy you gave us when we were young. Man Bao complained in his heart, the taste is similar, but the price is not the same at all. You can buy a lot of that kind of candy with 1 point, but this one costs more than 1,000 points. Oh, yes, after several transactions, it has now reached 1,800 points. Man Bao touched his heart and asked, everyone in the family ate it too? Zhou Liru nodded, eat all, even the servants in the family. The servants are all from the Bai family, but in the letter Man Bao sent back, it was stated that one of the servants in the family would be given to each servant, so as not to catch the disease when going out. Man Bao nodded, turned to look for Lu Sunyang and asked, did I send the medicine bottle I sent back to the prince? Yes, I personally watched the crown princess and the little grandson take it. The remaining one, because His Royal Highness was not there, so I didn't see it with my own eyes. The concubine said that your highness has already used it. Lu Sunyang paused for a while and then laughed in a low voice. Prince Concubine also said that this medicine is like a sugar pill, and your highness talked about it for a while after taking it. Man Bao breathed a sigh of relief, nodded and said, just eat it. Lu Sunyang said hesitantly, little girl, Li Zhong is here too. Man Bao stared, why is he here too? Lu Sunyang said, the main reason he brought the food was that the family couldn't worry about my aunt and uncle, so I asked him to come with us. In fact, after they received the letter from the official, Zhou Lishong decided to follow them to Xiaosu as soon as the announcement of the recruitment of doctors from the Yamen came out. He set aside half a year's food for the restaurant and home, and he took all the food from his sister-in-law's Lumi and the summer and autumn harvests from the farm in Pu village, and came to Beijing with the imperial court team. This time, the imperial army will send the medicinal materials and people to Xiaosu in person, because his wife and sister are in the team, and he is Zhou Man's nephew, so the people at the court are also very concerned about them. Lu Sunyang said, as soon as he entered the city today, he was invited by the grain store manager in the city, and the Yamen also went, all wanting to buy grain from him. In fact, Xiaosu is not very short of grain now, and the autumn harvest this year is still good. Yang Heshu and Bai Shan have calculated in private that the people have surplus grain in their homes, and there will be no starvation to death. But under the epidemic, people are panicking and food prices have risen. The Yamen side has to take out food to appease people's hearts. The common people may still have food in stock, but there are not many on the Yamen side. Moreover, there is still half a year before the summer harvest after the epidemic. This year, because the epidemic has affected farming, the food prices in Xiaosu will definitely soar from March to June next year. Ordinary people may not think of this, but they have their own way of survival, and they will definitely save some food. As a result, there is very little food circulating on the market now. Zhou Lishong took people to transport the grain to the city gate, but did not let the tenants who were escorting the tenants enter the city, but directly sent a letter to Shiro Lang, and then opened a grain bag to distribute some grain to them. This is the road on the road. You can go back together now, Take the documents, we have come all the way, you have not entered Xiaohu City, and you have not been in contact with smallpox patients, you can pass the checkpoint. He added, when I get home, my father will settle the wages to you. That's right, Zhou Lizhong didn't invite anyone outside at all. The workers of the 10 grain trucks were all tenants from Pu village. They had agreed before they came that they only needed to send the grain out of Xiaohu City without entering the city. See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2087. When Zhou Lizhong got the letter and arrived, Zhou Lizhong was about to be taken to the county government office. As soon as he saw the fourth uncle, he immediately waved to him excitedly and shouted, fourth uncle, our food is still in the city. Where's the door? The stewards who were pulling Zhou Lizhong saw Zhou Lizhong and immediately released Zhou Lizhong's hand, with regret on their faces. Why is this stingy nephew? Zhou Lizhong rushed up and dragged Zhou Lizhong back, salutes everyone, and said with a smile, everyone wants to buy food, fate is fate, Lizhong, come and call someone, this is the steward of Qinji grain shop. The so-called stretch out your hand and don't hit the smiling face, even if Shiro was doing business and asking desperately for a price, he still couldn't slip his hand. When they met his smiling face, everyone squeezed out a smile and responded, and then made an appointment with him to see the food at another time with regret. They received news this morning that people from the capital were coming, not only with medicinal materials for relief, but also grain merchants who came behind the convoy. Although they still have food in their inventory, this year is special and they won't have too much food. So I waited at the gate of the city early, and as soon as the owner of the batch of food was determined, he immediately pulled people into the city. I wanted to go to the restaurant for a meal and talk about business by the way. Who knew that the county government also came up with the idea of food, so they could only follow all the way to the county government. Originally, I was still puzzled, why this owner is so young and looks like a crown. Such a young boy dares to transport food to Xiaohu City at this time. He may not have a plan, but he must be courageous. Who knew it turned out to be the son and nephew of Shiro. After everyone walked away, they all shook their heads, knowing that it was impossible to take advantage of Zhou Lizhong. Seeing that everyone was gone, Thursday Lang dragged Zhou Lizhong to the city gate and asked, who is watching the food? The tenants of Pu village, I just distributed food to them, and I haven't had time to let them set off. Fourth uncle, there are many sick people in the city. I told them that they would not be allowed to enter the city. We have to call someone. Go and pull the food in. Thursday Lang said. Lejun and Xiang Mingxiu took the 3 sons with them. I was halfway through and heard that you were dragged away and came to save you. You two are so courageous, do you know who they are? Go with them. He said, you are not afraid that they will pour you wine and force you to put fingerprints on the documents. It's not that they haven't experienced such a pitiful thing when they go south and north, and they have also experienced it when the knife is on the neck. Zhou Lizhong said, it's the officials of the county government who are at the head. I can't help but give face, and isn't this under the command of Lord Yang? He has no confidence in others, but he still has confidence in Yang Heshu. He doesn't think the officials he manages dare to buy or sell. On Thursday, Lang asked, you came alone? Why didn't Li Wei follow? Zhou Lizhong simply smiled, there must always be someone at home who knows how to manage the accounts. He paused and said, my wife and third sister are also here. Thursday Lang stared, why are they here? It's dangerous here, we didn't dare to go out casually, they. Thursday Lang suddenly remembered that the eldest niece and Li Ru are both doctors. Zhou Lizhong nodded to Thursday Lang, the court issued a recruitment document, and they all signed up. He said, a lot of people came, there are 9 doctors from the folk, and Dr. Tao from Ji Shitang also came. Originally, Dr. Ding was also coming, but there were also people in the capital who suffered from smallpox, and the imperial court left several a doctor. Zheng Gu was also reporting to Zhou Man, smallpox was also found in the capital. Master, you have only left for 2 days, when someone quietly came to Ji Shitang to see a doctor. I knew at a glance that I couldn't save it, because I had acne all over my body, and I wasn't sure if it was smallpox or chickenpox, but I heard them talk like they were from the capital, like they came from the north, so I reported to the county government. The county magistrate Tang went down the line and found out that they secretly came out of Xiaoshu to seek medical treatment. There are many people like them. Fortunately, they found it in time. Now the number of smallpox patients in the capital is 30. Of the 8, 32 are new additions. In other words, 6 people infected 32 people. Man Bao rubbed his forehead and asked, there are so many people in the capital, and since there is smallpox there, why are you still here? The magistrate Tang said that although the population of the capital is large, it was discovered early, and as long as it is properly controlled, there will be no major problems. Moreover, the best doctors in Dajin are in the capital, and the most complete and best medicinal materials are also in the capital. In contrast, Xiaoshu is now in the midst of life and death, he said. The magistrate Tang said that only the Xiaoshu city is blocked now, but the villages and towns outside are still open. Housing all the sick and curing them, once there is chaos and the victims go south, or even spread out, the consequences will be unimaginable. It is also because of knowing this that the imperial court spent a lot of money to recruit doctors to come to Xiaoshu, and would not deduct the money for relief money given to Xiaoshu. Because imperial physician Zheng was in Xiaoshu and Zhou Man was also here, the Zheng family was very concerned about the movements in the court, and he said, my father heard that the money allocated by the court was jointly supervised by Master Wei and the Ministry of Household. All the medicinal materials bought were sent by the band army, and in addition to Xiaoshu, Yanzhou, Qingzhou and other places under this also received relief funds, all of which were replaced with medicinal materials and sent. This is to prevent local officials from withholding the relief funds and doing nothing. Man Bao breathed a sigh of relief, so there are still herbs coming. Zheng Gu nodded, the Ministry of Household has talked to several drug dealers through our house. My father estimated that after we came out, we should be able to add another batch of medicinal materials and distribute them, I thought. In another 11 or 12 days, a batch should arrive. Great, now Xiaoshu city lacks medicinal materials the most, Man Bao said. Since you have come, rest first, and when Imperial Physician Lu is free, he will definitely invite everyone to hold a meeting together. Tasks will be assigned from time to time. This time the condition is not as good as before. I am afraid I will not be able to take care of you, but I will let Imperial Physician Lu try to divide us as close as possible, and then you can ask me if you don't understand anything. The 4 of them responded together. Man Bao asked, okay, let's talk about it. Apart from you, do you have any acquaintances of mine? Zheng Gu and Zheng Xiao looked at Lu Sunyang, while Lu Sunyang looked at Zhou Liru. Zhou Liru, who was closest to Man Bao, could only say, little aunt, there are only 28 doctors this time, but in addition to the doctor, there are also students from the Imperial College and Kongwengan who have been ordered to help. Man Bao frowned. Zhou Liru said, young Master Bai is here, so is young Master Yin. There were only 4 people in the Chongguan pavilion, one was Yin Or, and the other 3 were Lu Huan, Feng Zonping, and Yi Ziang. A lot of people came from Quazijian, including Baiji. There were 38 people in total, 42 people in total. See you at 8:30 p.m. The update originally scheduled for 6 p.m. has been postponed until after 8:30 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2089. Not only did they come, but they also brought donations from the various colleges headed by Quazijian. All the donations were exchanged for medicinal materials and fabrics when they were in the capital and sent here. That's why the fleet is so long. At this time, a group of students were waiting to see Yang Heshu in the county office. General Gongxiao looked at the people standing in the yard, frowned and walked quickly to Yang Heshu. Seeing that he was still processing the official documents, he couldn't help but hurriedly said, "Why aren't you in a hurry? There are so many students outside, the imperial court is helping. Are we still making trouble for us?" Yang Heshu said indifferently, "Of course they are helping us." The Major General also looks down on the Kuazijian too much. They are not weak, especially those who have the courage to come here. He raised his head and glanced outside, and smiled slightly. "I really want to say, as long as they are familiar with the common affairs, they can use it more easily than the officials of the state and county. Students, if they have mastered the skills, they will be able to pay for you, the people, and the whole country without any regrets, without so many interests. Those who think they are a drag are mostly people who don't know how to use them." Yang Heshu finished approving the documents in his hand, put down his pen, got up, and said, let's go and see our warriors. If they dare to come to Xiaoshu city at this time, they are supreme warriors. Yang Heshu was born in the Kuazijian himself, and everyone present would call him a teacher. With this level of identity, plus he is known for his talent and reputation, he is the idol of many Kuazijian students, and it is especially convenient to instruct them. Of course, a city in Xiaoshu city can't use so many people. Yang Heshu didn't plan to keep everyone in Xiaoshu city. Moreover, the prefect is still under house arrest by him. Although Yang Heshu is only the magistrate of Kuoxian County, since the outbreak of the epidemic, the other 3 counties under Xiaoshu have also obeyed his decrees. No, it should be said that he listened to the decrees of the provincial governor's office, and now the decrees of the governor's office are under the control of Yang Heshu. Originally, other officials in the prefectural government, such as Bijiachenshi, also had a lot of opinions on Yang Heshu. After all, he was not in the right position, but the official document came from the capital soon, and Yang Heshu was appointed to represent the government affairs of Xiaoshu. Later, the capital sent it. Imperial doctors and medicinal herbs, no matter how many opinions they have, they will hold back first. Even Bijia and Chenshi in the city are now listening to Yang Heshu's orders, not to mention the other 3 counties under their jurisdiction. However, Yang Heshu didn't interfere much in the affairs of other counties, and only gave some advice on resisting smallpox, and sent a copy of the prescriptions prescribed by the imperial physicians to send it. Now that the manpower is sufficient, Yang Heshu wants to train all these apprentices, and then go to the mountain and the village to find all the smallpox patients. It was rare for Yang Heshu to spare time for dinner to entertain his apprentices in the best restaurant in Xiaoshu city. The restaurant has only reopened for less than 3 days. It welcomed such a large group of guests and was overjoyed. Yin Or passed by Yang Heshu while they were ordering. Yang Heshu went out with him. The 2 stood outside the private room and said, "Brother Yang, what about Bai Shan and the others?" He didn't see Bai Shan in the county office just now, and he didn't see him for dinner. With Yang Heshu's thoughtfulness, if Bai Shan and Bai Er were there, it was for the sake of meeting their classmates. He should also let Bai Shan and Bai Er meet. "Come over." Yang Heshu said. They went to the villages and towns to inspect. He looked at Yin Or, and when he saw that his face was fine, he asked with a smile, "How can your family trust you to come?" Yin he smiled slightly and said, "My classmates all have benevolence and ambition. Although I can't go into office, I also have the heart to help the world. My family didn't want my wish to fail, so I agreed." Yang Heshu is the only one who has a ghost, not to mention Mrs. Yin. Even Yin Li would not allow him to run to such a dangerous place. But the fact is that Yin Or did come. Yang Heshu didn't explore the fundamentals, but he still considered his physical condition, just stay in the city and support. Yin Or nodded with a smile, and then asked, "Where's Imperial Physician Zhou?" "She's in the medical shed, so she can't come out easily," Yang Hesha said after a pause. "You don't want to go in either. It's not easy for people who enter the epidemic area to come out. That's why he and General Gong can go in and out once a day. Others, even those who deliver supplies and patients, are also picked up at the gate." When Imperial Physician Lu and the others met in a meeting, they would go directly to the other hospital by carriage, and then go back by carriage again and again. They could not stop or get off on the way. Moreover, Yin Or's body is not suitable for going to places that are too dangerous. Even if Yang Heshu is not a doctor, he knows that weak people are more likely to contract smallpox. Yin he didn't ask for it either. He always had a right idea, but it wasn't that he couldn't listen to advice, and his character made him reluctant to make trouble for others. The people who entered the city were divided into several groups and settled down. Zhou Lishong brought food and was brought back to the rented yard by Shirulang, while the tenants in Pu village took the food they had distributed and some tolls, turned around and went back to the city. Go south. After walking for a long time, I just returned to the inn where I rested last night, so they all stayed there. They have vouchers, so the inn does not reject them, and it is more convenient than others to pass the checkpoint. They made a lot of money this trip. After all, in winter, they are also cats at home, so they can make a lot of money by sending a batch of goods to the owner. As for doctors such as Zhou Liru and Lu Sunyang, they were sent to different places directly after they entered the city, and they were organized together after seeing the current situation of all the medical sheds and other hospitals. Imperial Dr. Lu has been seriously lack of sleep in the past few days, so except Zhou Liru, all the doctors who came to help, he directly wrote down the numbers of the medical sheds and other hospitals and asked them to draw lots. He doesn't care. He said, whether you come from the private sector, or from the Imperial Hospital or the Imperial Physician's Office, you have already learned to diagnose the pulse, right? Here are a few prescriptions for the symptoms. This is the existing drug list, and you can start from the existing one. Prescribe the right prescription in the medicine list. Everyone, is it so difficult? Even the medicine is not complete. Dr. Lu continued, if there is no medicine on the prescription, you should think about what medicine can be replaced. If you can't think of it, go to Dr. Zhou, Dr. Jin, and Dr. Hua, and I and Dr. Zheng. It's time to work together to change the prescription. It's better to be slow than wrong, and it's better to be slower than to prescribe the wrong medicine to a patient. You all understand this principle. Man Bao and everyone bowed their heads and responded with a yes. Satisfied, Imperial Physician Lu sent the prescription to everyone, then turned around and left. Zhenggu couldn't help but leaned in front of his master and said, I feel that Imperial Physician Lu's temper is getting worse. Man Bao lowered his voice and said, he hasn't slept enough this time, and he's getting old again. Please forgive me. Man Bao sighed, it should be written in the book that menopause is coming, we have to be considerate to the older people. Zhenggu, I always feel that Imperial Physician Lu would not be too happy if he knew about Master's thoughts. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2090. Man Bao carefully swept the fallen pox scab into the bottle, held his breath and closed the bottle before saying to the little girl on the bed, you're recovering well, you don't even need to take the medicine, you can leave tomorrow. The little girl was stunned, and it took a moment to react, and she said in surprise, really? Can I go? Man Bao nodded. She turned her head to the mother who was beside her, and cried, Mother, I'm fine, I'm fine. Yes, hello, you are finally all right. The woman pulled the little girl out of bed and knelt down for Man Bao. Man Bao hurriedly stretched out his hand to support her. Sister-in-law, what are you doing? Please get up. Thank you Imperial Dr. Zhou for your life-saving grace, big girl, and kowtow to Imperial Dr. Zhou. When you brought it here, The doctors couldn't say it. It was Imperial Dr. Zhou who rescued you. The little girl knelt down again, but Man Bao stopped her, and she also kowtowed. In one day, Man Bao sent 8 patients out, all of whom were cured and survived. There are good ones, and there are bad ones. Man Bao withdrew his hand and shook his head at the relatives of the patient beside him, and then there was cries in the shed. During this time, Lai Manbao has become accustomed to such a goodbye. The first time she saw her, she was still uncomfortable and needed to stand in the air vent for a few quarters of an hour to calm down, but after a month, people died and were carried out every day. Numb. At this time, Man Bao no longer stood in the wind and pretended that the wind was too strong. She just stood quietly, watching her relatives cry for a while, and then nodded to Zhou Liru, who was waiting beside her. Zhou Liru went out and called someone, and soon someone would come to carry the deceased out. The corpse needed to be cremated, so he could only leave with the ashes. This is also one of the reasons why some smallpox patients are reluctant to come to the hospital even if they die. Man Bao saw that they were gone, and turned to see the next patient. When she finally dragged her 2 legs to the place where the medicine was boiled, she squatted on the ground after having dinner with Zhou Liru. A doctor came over and asked, "Dr. Zhou, I see several patients from your side in the morning, and I saw you sending people off at the air outlet. How many beds are vacant?" Man Bao sighed and said, 9, 8 survived, and 1 died. When a doctor saw that she was not very interested, he smiled and said, "Dr. Zhou, your side is much better than us. You can heal 8 people in 1 day, and it is very rare that only 1 person dies." "Yes, yes, I went out 5 today, 2 died, and only 3 were alive." Man Baodao, "But I've been here for a long time. These patients are all treated after I came." The patient she was treating when she came in was either dead or had already been cured and was helping everywhere at this time. And now all the people living in the medical shed are living in through her hands, and she has been watching. She has tried her best to be thorough, but people still die every day. There is some discomfort, but what Manbao feels most deeply is the viciousness of the smallpox virus. The mortality rate is too high. She can pat her chest and say that her treatment plan is the most comprehensive of all the doctors, and even Imperial physician Lu can't compare. The treatment methods she used, decoction, acupuncture, and concoction for scrubbing, were 3-pronged. She naturally knew that doctors could not guarantee a 100% cure, but with such a comprehensive treatment method, the mortality rate was also so high. Want to see how high the death rate is in other people or elsewhere? What Mr. Mo said is really good. This is a very ferocious double high virus with high infectivity and high mortality. Therefore, it is still necessary to prevent it early, rather than bother to treat it after the epidemic occurs. While eating, Man Bao was thinking about prevention. She asked the doctor beside her, "Have you heard of the method of vaccination?" "What?" Man Bao said, "People who have had smallpox will not get smallpox again. If all the people in the world have acne once, won't the flower be gone that day?" "Imperial physician Zhou, do you mean to let everyone in the world get smallpox? How many people can survive?" Man Baodao, "The toxicity of smallpox is also strong or weak. Haven't you noticed that the acne on children is lighter than that of adults? A child may be cured in 5 days, but adults need 7 days, or even longer time." She said, "None of the adults in my medical shed were cured within 7 days, but there are many children. I have observed the situation of acne, and the acne of children is indeed less toxic than that of adults. So what if we can control the toxicity of smallpox?" She thought about the vaccination method she had seen, and said, "If we can choose smallpox with less toxicity to infect a person or a cow, cure him, and then use its pox scab to infect people or cattle with smallpox. After 2 or 3 times, the toxicity must be diluted a lot at this time, take the pox scab and infect people with smallpox, and the smallpox toxicity emitted at this time it should be the youngest, and it can be cured with a little treatment. He won't have a high fever, and he won't have acne all over his body, but he did have acne, and if he encounters smallpox in the future, he will naturally not be infected again. It sounds like a fantasy, but everyone miraculously thinks it makes sense. So someone asked, where did Imperial Dr. Joe hear about this method? Thinking so thoroughly, it is obviously not what you want now. Man Bao's words turned around on the tip of his tongue and said, I heard it from a patient. He said that there seems to be this method in the western regions, but I don't know if it's true or not. This time, smallpox seems to have come from the western regions. No, it doesn't mean that there were cattle and sheep on the grasslands who were sick, but they sold the sick cows and sheep to people in Xiaohu city, and that's how they got infected. Really, how did I hear that the people on the grasslands got sick first and went to Xiaohu city to infect us people in the central plains? After listening to them, Man Bao became more and more biased, and hurriedly said, Master Yang will investigate this cause later. Do you think this method of vaccination is reliable? You don't know if it's reliable until you try it, right? Then you have to use people to test it, said a doctor. The imperial physician of Zhou is a court official, and there are still death row prisoners available, but even death row prisoners can't be used to test smallpox at will, right? Yes, this method is harmful. So I still have to look for it, find the source of this method, and then study it after knowing the exact method. At that time, the death row will be used, and the future merits can also offset the sins. Man Bao nodded again and again, I think so too, so I have to go to the western regions. The doctors didn't speak for a long time, and after a while, they said, where is it so simple, the road is so long. Who would want to go to the western regions? Man Bao is willing. Seeing that everyone had been discussing in a low voice, she nodded with satisfaction, but she still couldn't help but think of the method of vaccination. It is said in the book that cowpox is safer than human pox, which should be the reason for its lower toxicity, but the specific method of spreading pox has not been mentioned, so the doctors are not wrong. You still have to find someone to try it out. It seems that I really want to offend the prisoners on the death row, it is really a sin. See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2091. After the new year, there are only a few people who get sick every day. There are cured people going out every day in the medical shed. Yang and Shu have less people to read, and the other hospital is about to be emptied. All the patients were moved to other hospitals. Man Bao stopped taking care of the other hospitals and concentrated on taking care of the remaining patients in the military camp. When they recovered one after another, New Year's Eve was approaching. It is impossible to think about going back to Beijing for the new year. Man Bao held a hand stove, and was greeted by Yingyu before she got off the carriage. She said with a smile, Bai Gongzi and the others are here, just wait for Miss Man. Man Bao shrank his neck and said, Xiaohu is really cold, much colder than the capital. Fortunately, there are many medicinal herbs sent to treat wind cold, otherwise it would be a lot of trouble. Sitting by the fire, Yang Heshu, who was somewhat drowsy, heard these words vaguely, raised his head just to see her coming in wearing a cloak, and said with a smile, speaking of which, I would like to thank you for thinking carefully, and preparing the herbs ahead of time. Prepare these. This time it was a private banquet. Zhou Man just came out of the barracks, and it was a celebration for her, except for some unrecovered smallpox patients in the other hospital. The Yamen has been cleaning and checking the streets for the past 2 days, and no new smallpox patients have been found. In addition to Zhou Man, He only invited Bai Shan, Bai Er, and Yin Or, and General Gong Xiao. He said, General Gong should be here soon. He said that he would like to thank you very well. The mortality rate of smallpox in the army is lower than outside. The hospital shed you are responsible for also has the lowest mortality rate. Manbao had been deprived of sleep for 2 months in a row, and she just wanted to sleep at this time. She sat by the fire with her hand in her arms, without even taking off her cloak, and asked, "Is the data out?" "Not yet," answered Bai Shan, who said, "It's still in the statistics, but everyone we can find has been recorded, and it will take a few more days to know the exact number. But only Xiaozhou City and its subordinates, the total number should not be less than 6,000, with more than 2,000 dead." He paused and said, "In the beginning, the spread was too wide, the city was okay, and some villages were closed. When we looked for it, there were no 1 out of 10. Manbao was a little sad, and Yang Heshe felt even more pain in his heart. There are 4 counties in Xiaozhou City, of which Guo County, under his jurisdiction, was the worst hit. Bai Shan lowered his voice and said, "But I found out that Zhuofang County is not the one with the highest death rate. Of the 6,000 infected people in Xiaozhou, at least 4,000 are in Xiaozhou City, but the death toll in Xiaozhou City is only 750. 8 people. I inspected the village, and the total number of deaths should not exceed 200. Shuofang County is Guo County in Xiaozhou City, and Yang Heshu is the magistrate of Shuofang County. In other words, outside of Shuofang County, less than 2,000 patients died and more than 1,000 died. This is more than 50% of the mortality rate. It was worth it at the beginning. Later, the prescription of the Taiyuan hospital spread and the cure rate increased. It should not be like this." Yang Heshe sat up straight. The room was silent for a while, and Yin Or faintly said, "Smallpox and clan annihilation are possible, but the death rate is only about 50%, the court should be satisfied. I think they will not be too sad, it's not that 80% or 90% of the people died." Bai Erlang was so shocked that he was speechless, and it took a while to find his own voice. Then, "That's it?" Bai Shan said rationally, "If you really want to ask the guilt, the first person to ask should be Brother Yang. Smallpox started in Shuofang County." The fists in Yang Heshe's sleeves tightened and loosened, and tightened, and Mr. Kui, who had brought the ingredients, looked at him worriedly. Bai Shan stretched out his hand to take the plate with the meat, and Manbao also looked up at Mrs. Kui, squeezed out a smile and asked, "How's your sister-in-law doing recently?" Kui said with a smile, "I'm fine, I'm very careful, so those pimples didn't leave any traces." Manbao nodded. Bai Shan placed the price of the sliced meat on the iron plate, the meat made a sizzling sound, and the smell of the meat pulled everyone's thoughts back. He asked Yang Heshu, "Did Shuexian Yang write a confession?" Yang Heshu nodded. "The portion from Shuofang County is already on the way, and it should arrive in the capital in 2 days, but the portion from Xiaozhou City will have to wait for you to figure out the numbers." Bai Shan said, "My classmates and I will speed up the pace, but it is impossible to complete it before the year before." "Yeah, this year is destined to be an uneven year." Yang Heshe glanced out and said, "The house arrest has been lifted from the governor's house, and after the new year, I will go back to Beijing to fight with him, and you should go back to Beijing together." He put the prefect under house arrest, which obviously can't be counted as such. And Niu Shishi won't do that either. They must have a lawsuit to fight in front of the imperial court. In addition to the situation in Xiaozhou City, they also need to do the right thing in front of the imperial court. Bai Shan looked at Manbao. After thinking about it, Manbao nodded. "There are not many patients in the other hospital now, and they should have results in a few days. As long as there are no new patients, we can go back." Yin He has always been a little puzzled. Why did Brother Yang put Niu Shishi under house arrest? Yang Heshu had an indescribable look on his face, saying that people are right and wrong behind his back is not the true character of a gentleman. Because he's stupid, Major General Gong strode in from the outside, took off his cloak and threw it to his servants, waved to the people who were about to stand up and salute, sat down on the stool by the fire, and said to Yang Heshu, "You just go back to Beijing, my father has promised that he will speak for you in a book when the time comes." Humph, what if Niu Feng is placed under house arrest? It is for the sake of his being an official of the imperial court that he is not accused of his family. Not only Yin Or, but Bai Shan and the others couldn't help but become curious. They came early and were busy on weekdays. They only occasionally learned from the discussions of officials when investigating the origin of smallpox that smallpox seemed to have come from the governor's mansion, but no one was willing to say the specifics. Other officials were concerned about the prefect's face, but General Gong did not. He said, "Niu Feng has a young son named Niu Kong. When there was a conflict, he took advantage of the crowd and robbed an orchid. He took people back to the mansion and hung out with the orchid all day long. I don't know why, the orchid became hot and vomited. The doctor who invited her thought she was not acclimatized at first, so he gave her a prescription. Fangzi, it turned out that within 2 days, people developed a dozen pimples, high fever, and the condition was menacing, and it took less than a day from the discovery of pimples to the death of the person." General Gong said, "The doctor who saw the doctor thought it was wrong, and said that she might have smallpox, and the Niu family was called out. Niu Kong didn't know whether to live or die, and he liked that orchid in his heart, not only hugging people and crying. There was a big funeral, and all his friends went to join in the fun. Within 2 days, he himself developed acne, and people who had been in contact with orchid also developed red acne one after another. Only then did the Niu family remember what the doctor said, so they asked for the doctor and blocked the news at the same time." General Gong Shao said bitterly, but that Niu Kong didn't know what it was. Knowing that his condition was different, he went to the Spring Breeze Tower for a banquet that day. Not only that, but the Niu family didn't stop him. Came Ai, the girl, and the servant, whether it is time to go out or go out. In less than 5 days, they turned around half of Xiaohu city, and some doctors still felt bad and quietly reported to Changbo, and Changbo knew about it. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2092. After Yang Changbo found out, he didn't make trouble immediately, but first went to see the bullshit. Niu Shishi naturally denied this matter, and Yang Hesha did not press on, but retreated sensible, wanting to give him time and space to deal with it. Whether it is sending people to Zhuangzi or isolating Yang Changbo in his own house, he can accept it. Niu Bishi loves his reputation, he allows it, and he can take a step back if he does not want to take this responsibility. As long as he is willing to cooperate and control the people suffering from smallpox. Yang Hesha did not publicize the matter after leaving the restaurant, but only made people stare at the governor's mansion. Who knew that the governor's mansion was quiet for 2 days, and the doctor invited a lot, but the birthday banquet of Mrs. Niu on the 3rd day of October has not been cancelled. Therefore, Yang and Shukai stood on the opposite side of the Niu family, and the Niu Shishi did not fall, and Xiaohu city was the one who called the shots. Shuofang County is different from other counties. It is Guo County. Other counties can be far away from the emperor. Once the traffic is cut off, the governor will not be able to control them. Everyone knows that he eats one more bun in the county government office in the morning. So if Niu Shishi is not in line with him, Yang Hesha can't do anything, who calls him a Shangguan. Therefore, Yang Hesha simply did not do the second, and did not know how to talk to General Gong. General Gong voluntarily fell ill and handed the army over to General Gong. Then Yang Hesha borrowed troops from him and directly surrounded the governor's mansion. Yang Hesha said, "There are many people in the governor's mansion who have smallpox. Niu governor has lost a son, 2 grandsons, and 2 granddaughters." Man Bao couldn't help but ask, "Niu Kong, Alive, Yang Hesha said, it was his elder brother who died. Manbao is beyond words. Bai Shan also said, this feud is so serious that when I arrived, the prefect's mansion still wanted to leave the city to seek medical treatment. Don't you remember, among the many managers who went to ask you to see the doctor, there was the Niu family, and you didn't go. Imperial physician Lu and Imperial physician Zheng didn't go either, and in the end the Niu family relented and sent people to another hospital, but before they were sent, their family had already started to die. Those who know the etiquette will find their own reasons. This matter is all caused by Niu Kang, but Niu Shishi's actions before are obviously rude, and the guilt on his body can no longer be taken off. The barefoot is not afraid of wearing shoes. He really wants to give his life to Su, and brother Yang is not easy to escape. Moreover, this smallpox epidemic is likely to be so anticlimactic. Bai Shandao, speaking of which, the number of people who died this time is so large that I feel distressed when I look back on it, but this is smallpox. It is indeed a rare achievement to be able to survive so many people, but you and I are among them, and we all know this. When things happened, we could actually do better, whether it was at the beginning, or when we arrived in Xiaoshu city, or at the end. Not only us, but other counties and villages could do better. He said, there should be fewer people who died. Yang Hesha said, do you want to speak out about this matter so that future generations can learn from it? Yes, Bai Shan said, smallpox cannot be isolated, and no one knows when it will come again in the future, and besides smallpox, there will be other epidemics. These can be recorded in the book, and local officials can learn from them in the future. Manbao, there are also the Imperial Hospital and the Imperial Medical Office. We have benefited a lot this time. But to break these apart, there will be more people to be held accountable. Yang Hesha couldn't help but narrowed his eyes with a smile. You guys made me offend the officials of the entire Xiaoshu. Bai Erlang, anyway, you have already offended you, but you have only offended more thoroughly. Yang Hesha lowered his eyes and thought for a while. After a while, he looked at Mrs. Kui who was helping to set the dishes. You're right, we've already offended each other, but now it's just a more thorough offense. He said to Bai Shan, you can write a book, and give it to me. If you don't understand, you can ask Master Chen. He knows from the beginning to the end of the matter, what data is needed, and he will go to the county government to adjust it. Bai Shan was overjoyed, got up and saluted, thank you, brother, for your accomplishment. Go to La Yin or he Bai Erlang again, you guys come and help me. The two said that there was no problem, and Bai Shan said, call the hall brother again, it would be better if Feng Zonping and Yi Xiang would help. His eyes fell on Manbao. Manbao waved his hand and said, don't look for me, I've been very busy recently, and I have other things to do. Even Yang Heshu looked over curiously and asked with a smile, what are you doing? Manbao said solemnly, have a meeting. It was a real meeting. After an epidemic, not only did she memorize a thick volume of pulse records and prescriptions, but other doctors and imperial physicians also memorized a lot. It's just a pity that it's very chaotic. After all, it's not like sitting in the hall as usual in the face of the epidemic. You can take a slow record. They all make up after the event when they are free, and discard it when they are not free. But that's it, they wrote down a lot of pulse cases and prescriptions. A group of doctors asked people to vacate a side yard of another hospital, and then sat in it to discuss the prescriptions used in this epidemic, various treatments, and their effects. Bai Shan said that officials should sum up experience and lessons for the future, especially the Imperial Hospital and the Imperial Medical Office, because the epidemic is closely related to them. The disease in one place has nothing to do with officials in another place, but it will definitely have something to do with the Taiyuan Hospital and the Imperial Physician's Office. And for the New Year's Eve, those who live in Xiaoshu can go home to reunite with others. What can doctors from the capital or other places do? Because of the epidemic, White hemp is everywhere outside, and there is not much New Year's celebration at all, and the smallpox has not been completely broken. Naturally, it is best to stay at home and close the door. So even on the 29th year of the new year, there are not many people outside. On Thursday, Lang slaughtered the last cow, and before he took it out to set up a stall, the people who came to make reservations took half of it first, and the remaining half was taken to the street, and they were all sold out in a short while. Then he threw the money in the cloth bag on his shoulders, and wandered to the other courtyard to pick up people. He didn't even get close, so he found a place to squat diagonally across from the other courtyard, and waited for about 3/4 of an hour before the side door of the other courtyard opened. He took the cloth bag and stepped forward. Man Bao. Man Bao said goodbye to the others and stepped forward. Fourth brother, why are you here? Thursday Lang reached out and put the hat of her cloak on her to protect her from the wind, and said with a smile, tomorrow will be 30, so I can't be busy, right? Let's go home for the new year. He said, after the cow is killed, I propose to keep a leg, and then you can take it to eat and play with Bai Shan and the others. There are still a lot of bones left in the house. When I came out, it was already boiled. I added some medicinal herbs and said that it is to ward off the cold, so you can drink 2 bowls later. See you at 9.